And so with that, Tom, I'll let you get us going.
Great. Well, thank you, Anne, and welcome everybody. I appreciate you taking the time today to learn more about CX-E Voice 20.4. This is our first product launch under the OpenText umbrella. As most of you know, XMedius was acquired by OpenText earlier this year, so this is our first opportunity to launch under the OpenText brand, and I'm very excited to do so. I'm Tom Minifee. I'm the Director of Product Management at OpenText within the Digital Experience organization. OpenText has a number of different product focuses, and one of them is Digital Experience, and I'm a director within that group responsible for voice applications, which includes CX-E Voice, which we're going to talk about today, as well as a product called Qfinity, which is a contact center workforce optimization solution. So let's get started. First, from a timing perspective, so today is the customer webinar. And we're actually full GA at this point. So the product is available. What I'm going to talk to you about today is generally available and ready for you to install if you're ready to do so. One other piece of information, I'll touch on this towards the end as well. This week happens to be OpenText World, which is our...
I have to reread that.
Hey, Anne, can you mute everyone?
Yeah, let me see what's going on there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right. So this week is OpenText World, which is our end user conference. So there's just a ton of content available to you across all the different portfolios. CX-E Voice is covered in that. There's two sessions, one that's very much an overview of the product as well as specific to the 20.4 release, and then there's a live demonstration of a couple of our interfaces. We have a brand new web client that I'm going to talk to you about, as well as a mobile client, and those are demonstrated via content in OpenText World. So if you haven't had an opportunity to check out some of the content, I encourage you to do so. So before I get into CX-E Voice 20.4, let me talk about a couple things in terms of, things that have driven our focus on this release and, what caused us to invest in certain things. So one of the things that always happens is there's always, changes in technology, and that certainly drives things. As for this group, existing CX-E customers, which I assume most of you are, there is an end of life coming up. Actually, it's this month, so ends tomorrow, which is a previous release of the product, which is version 8.7, has now been out for 5 years, and so that moves into a really of an end of active support. Doesn't mean that you can't get technical support on it. If the product is under maintenance, you can get technical support, but we aren't issuing patches for that after this week, which would be tomorrow. So 8.7, if you're running on that, or if you're, we still have some customers running even older than that, you are in a position where you aren't going to see updates to that release any further. So with 20.4, it's out in the market, it's an ideal opportunity to look at upgrading to the latest and greatest. Microsoft has had, they've got a 10-year support life cycle. So some of the Office applications that were under the 2010 moniker, those have all moved to end of support. So again, since we integrate with a lot of those solutions, if you're upgrading to the latest and greatest on the Microsoft side, you really should look at what version you're using of our software and make sure it's compatible with the latest and greatest. So those activities are going on. The other thing I'll mention is Nuance, that's a technology partner of ours. We use their speech recognition technology. They actually have an application called Speech Attendant that is purely a speech-based auto attendant solution, so a directory type application. They've announced end of life on that. End of any type of support happens next year. So if you happen to have our product, you also have the Nuance Speech Attendant product. I'm happy to say that you can take that application that you've been using Speech Attendant for and actually run that on the CX-E server. So if you happen to have both products, this is an opportunity for you to consolidate it all onto our solution. So those are some of the things kind of more external than internal that are occurring in the market that drives our attention. The other thing, no news to anyone. We're all living this, right? 2020 has been an incredibly interesting year. Interesting is probably a overly positive word in this case, but we're all dealing with the work from home. And it's interesting, at least in my eyes, it's interesting in that, in the past, there was a real reluctance, I think, of companies to allow their employees to work from home. And there was a belief that, if they're not in the office and not being viewed working, then maybe they won't be working or won't be working as hard as they were when they were in the office. Well, with the situation we're in right now, we've all been forced to become productive in exactly that scenario. And what folks have found is people are actually more productive. I can look at my own situation. I used to have a pretty long commute, and so I'd invest, on a good day, 2 hours round trip on the road, and those 2 hours are now available for something else. It could be personal exercise. It could be more work. There's just more hours available in the day to get things done. And so what Gartner has found is that this isn't going to be as soon as it's over, we're all back in the office type thing. Working from home is going to live with us and going to be a reality for some time forward. So because of that, it used to be from a product perspective, we really talked about mobile employees, so the people that were driving from appointment to appointment and they needed to stay productive while they were in the car or in the transit or whatever it may be. That has changed. It's not so much that people are mobile, it's that they are remote. And with remote working brings additional challenges in terms of, how do you secure that home office to let's call it the corporate office? How do you protect data? Should we look at cloud technology? Now that we have IT personnel where it's not as easy to actually get into the office, or maybe you're restricted from doing so, do it all via a cloud type technology. Maybe it's still deployed in your own data center, but it's all intended to be remotely accessed and managed. So a number of different things that are causing everyone to look at their technology stacks and determine what I have today. Is it the right stack? Is it delivered in the right manner that works for me, or should we look at making changes to improve the management of it, to improve the remote aspect of it, all those things. So we really took a look at that with this release and wanted to make sure we were appealing to these new needs. The other thing that we've noticed is as we're all working remotely, there's definitely been an influx of how do people communicate internally within a company, and that has changed. We're no longer communicating by walking by somebody's office or we met up in the break room or something like that. We're using technologies like these collaboration solutions, like Slack and Microsoft Teams and WebEx and those types of technologies, and that's become a very common thing for internal communications within a company. In fact, I don't know about you, but my days just fill up now with blocked out time where it may be a one-on-one conversation that used to just happen throughout the day. Now they're scheduled, and people are blocking out time on calendars to actually have a conversation, and that's all being done via, Teams or WebEx or whatever. Because of that, we're actually less available to take the ad hoc call, which tends to be now, when you look at phone calls, they tend to be from our external contacts. So it's customers, it's vendors, it's partners, whoever it may be. It's people outside of our organization that don't have access to the same collaboration tool that we're using internally, and a phone call is still very much an active way to communicate with somebody outside of your organization. So we're actually seeing an increase in phone call activity with the outside. Oops, sorry. So with that gives you just kind of a quick preamble as to what was on our mind as we move forward with CX-E Voice. So for all of our current customers, this should look familiar in terms of, it's the same applications that we've been delivering. Interoperability is still core to the CX-E solution, where we can interop with, whatever the call control or the PBX product is that's out there, as well as on the email side. We've got, this middle layer of technology, whether it be speech recognition or mobility or, federation, all those types of things to really drive the applications that we deliver to you, our customer. So that doesn't change. The name has changed, but the applications are the same. The one point I do want to make about this, and we haven't really pushed this much or talked about it much in the past, but with CX-E Voice, now you're already a customer of it, and presumably you have that deployed within your own IT infrastructure. So it's under your control. It's deployed on premises or in your, whatever cloud solution you have, whether it be a private cloud or you're using one of the public cloud providers. We have, for the last several years, I don't remember the exact number, let's call it 5 years, we've offered CX-E in a hosted offering as well, and that's available to you. So as a current customer, if you're interested in saying, you know what, I actually don't want to refresh the hardware, I don't want to run this within my own IT infrastructure, I'd rather move CX-E into a hosted environment where somebody else is responsible for upgrading the software and managing the hardware and refreshing the hardware and all those types of things. That's available to you. So as a current customer, if that's something that you're interested in, if that's on your objectives list, is to try to move more and more applications into a cloud environment, then reach out to your partner, or reach out to, if you know your OpenText regional sales manager, reach out and we can have a conversation about that. Okay, so with CX-E Voice, I'm going to talk about the name and the versioning in a moment, but it is, as I mentioned earlier, it is fully released, fully available, and so it's ready to deploy whenever you're ready to deploy it. As mentioned here briefly, really focus is on trying to address the needs of the mobile and remote worker, introducing more and more speech technology into the solution, and really doing a refresh of all the components. Security is a big issue these days, and the way that you keep applications secure is you keep updating the individual components. So if it's our VoIP stack, if it's our database, whatever it is, all of our components have been refreshed to have the latest and greatest and most secure profile that they can have. So just briefly on branding, CXE was the name of the product under the AVST days. And then when we were acquired by XMedius, we came out with a new name, which was XM Connect. And as OpenText, we've decided to go back to the CXE name. It's officially called within OpenText CX-E Voice. And from a versioning standpoint, this is very different. We've always had a version that kind of grew, one by one over the years. Even after the XMedius acquisition, we kept the current versioning going. However, as OpenText has a kind of a standard procedure to use versioning that indicates the year that the product was released, as well as the quarter that it was released. And so 20.4 means it was released in 2020 in quarter number 4. So next year we release something in April. That'll be the 21.2 release. So that's the logic behind it. So you can imagine, fast forward 3 years and you're running on the 20.4 release. It's 3 years old just by the versioning. So that explains the version number. It's not that, this is a totally different product than the version 9 that you have or the version 8.7 or whatever. It's just moving to the OpenText methodology for versioning. The other thing I should explain is you do see the CE moniker. So it's CE 20.4, and CE stands for Cloud Edition. So as OpenText release products, it's very important for us to release versions that are cloud compatible, regardless of whether you actually consume it from the cloud, you deploy it in the cloud, or you use it in our cloud. It is cloud ready. You can still deploy it on-prem just like you may have in the past, but this version is available. And as I mentioned, we have a cloud solution where we're hosting the application. That's available to you as well. This isn't an announcement that it's only cloud now and you can't use this on-prem. If you want to do that, you can continue to use the software within your own IT infrastructure. Okay. Okay. Moving forward, one of the things that we've really looked at, and this is especially true in the current environment where we're all working, from home with different types of IT assets available to us. It's really important, in our eyes, it's really important to pay attention to what clients we can deliver to our customers. So if you go back in time, the telephone user interface, you're listening to prompts, you're pressing buttons on a phone, kind of the old way of accessing voicemail. That certainly exists. Then we came out with a speech interface. It was conceptually the same thing. You're listening to prompts, but instead of pressing buttons, you're speaking commands. So, get my new voicemail or change my availability or whatever the command was. That existed. But now with, we're sitting at desks, they just happen to be in our homes. It really comes down to what type of visual interfaces are available to me. So one of the things with this release, and I'll talk about it in a moment, is there's a brand new web client that's all using, a fresh look and all new technology. We're really happy to deliver that. We've had mobile clients for Android and iOS in the past, and those have been updated. And then we also have our unified messaging interface, which is really using your email client. So most people are Outlook-based, where they're using Outlook as their message client, or maybe you're a Gmail customer. It's how do we utilize those interfaces for our solution. So firstly, let's talk about the new web client. We've had a web client in the past. It's called Web Phone Manager. That still exists, but just to be clear, moving forward, our investment will all be on this new web client. So we encourage you to take a look at that. If you use our web client today, take a look at the new one, and hopefully you'll like it. If there's something that you don't like about it, we definitely want to hear about it, because this is where we're going to invest from a web client perspective moving forward. It's all based on HTML5, so it's got a new look and feel. It feels and responds like an application rather than a web page. It is responsive, so regardless if you're running it on a 24-inch monitor, or it's on a laptop screen, or it's a tablet, it can resize based on the size of the device that you're actually using. It does have a number of visual options to it. What I'm displaying here, this is the message screen. So if you access your messages through the web client, you'll see a list of them. This is a view that has a preview page. So without actually opening the message, you can play it. If you have transcription, you can see the transcription. All of that is available in a single view. You can also change it, and you can not have a preview page if you want the real estate for other things. So you've got options as to how it's going to be displayed. With this release, we have the full message access and control. If you're keeping messages on the CX-E server, you've got call logs. You've got all your preferences. So if you want to, manage your greetings or name recordings, your distribution lists, your devices, all those kinds of things are now managed via this web client. And we think it'll be very popular, especially now that people are working from home. If you're not a unified messaging user, where you aren't getting messages through the email client, web client is a fantastic thing to give your end users as a way to access the CX-E server from their home office. One other piece to it is with this version, we have added transcription. We've had that in unified messaging previously. We've had it in our mobile client. This adds it to the web client. So if you are having your messages transcribed, you'll actually see the transcription as part of the message via the web client. And if the caller left a phone number in the message, you'll actually see the phone number, and it's got a hyperlink associated with it, which will initiate a click to call functionality. Just like we've had in other parts of our product, we've called it live reply in the past. Same functionality. So click on the phone number, whatever device that you've set up to be your primary device, CX-E will ring down to you. You answer the phone. We will then connect you to that outside number, or the number that you clicked on. So it'll automatically dial it for you and set up the call and connect you to that outside party. So that's all integrated into the web client and available. Right. One thing, I don't think this really will apply to any of our existing customers. You have full access to automated attendant functionality. However, if you have a need for, let's say it's a different location and all they need is an auto attendant, whether it be speech-based, which most people are going with these days, or it's, the old button pressing DTMF-based menuing system. If all you want is a auto attendant, we've got the ability to deliver the product in that manner. But for our existing sites, you've got full access to automated attendant, so I don't think this will matter too much to you. Other features, there's a lot packed into this release. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. One of the things we heard a lot about from our current customers is when a call comes in from the outside, and it's an unknown person, it's not a user of the system, but you get a call from somebody outside. In the past, we would capture the phone number, and let's say they left a message, so you didn't actually take their call, but it went to voicemail, they left a message. We would take the phone number, capture the phone number from the call, and we would make that part of the message header. So it would say voice message from outside caller at 425-951-1600. And that's what you would see. If that phone number was in your contact database, then we could also say matching your contact, Tom Menifee. What we didn't do is if the telephone network had a name associated with that calling number, we didn't capture that. Now we can. So if it's an external person, we don't know the phone number, or it's not in our database, so we can't match it to a contact. We can capture both the name associated with that phone number as well as the phone number, and we'll post that as part of the message. So you'll see more information about those external unknown callers. They'll become more known. You may still not know the person, but at least you know their name. Another thing that was a big ask of our customers has been more control over what gets exposed to the end user via the mobile client and the web client. And so now we've got a concept from an administrative perspective. You can say, hey, I don't want to use availability. This is just an example. A lot of people use availability, but let's say you decide, I don't want to expose availability to my end users. You can actually hide that, so the availability setup is not visible via the mobile client or not visible via the web client. So as an admin, you can pick and choose what you want to expose and not expose. Not 100% is available for that, but we've put a lot of control in there to allow you some, let's call it customization. It doesn't change the code at all, but it does change the displays. So if there's something that you find that you'd like to have control over that we haven't provided it for, that's would be great feedback for us as well. Many of our customers are integrated into Office 365, so if you've moved your Exchange environment up into Microsoft's cloud, so now it's all O365 related, we've invested in some scalability improvements, especially for our larger customers, where what Microsoft has done, because this is, Office 365 is a multi-tenanted environment, they put in throttling limits on how much a given account can, let's call it, communicate with it. And so what we've done is improve the ability to create multiple accounts that can be used for Office 365 integration purposes, and improve some of the reporting or alerting based on those accounts, so you get better feedback on, hey, there appears to be a problem with Office 365. This is what we're seeing, that sort of thing. So we think it'll help moving forward integrate into the O365 environment. And then the other Microsoft-related thing this release is fully supported on Windows Server 2019. So all of our different server roles are compatible with Server 2019. So if you want to upgrade to 2019, CX-E Voice is compatible with that, with the 20.4 release. One of the things I wanted to share with you quickly is just our roadmap. This is something historically we haven't done a great job of really sharing where we were going with the product. One of the OpenText standards is to do that and publicly state, directional type items. So what you see in the first two columns is what we delivered in the 9.0 SU3 release. What we've talked about in 20.4, you'll see some items that I didn't mention, but here's the 20.4 release, and really where we're going forward, which is what I wanted to talk about now, is if you think about it, now that we're owned by OpenText, OpenText has this very broad portfolio of solutions and just a bunch of technology within the organization. And so it provides us with a unique and great opportunity to take advantage of some of that technology. One of the areas where OpenText really excels is in analytics and AI. And so one of the things that we're really interested in is taking the content that is contained in a voice message, and let's put that through analytics. Let's gain some customer insights out of that, because just like other communication paths between your organization and your end customer, you analyze those communications and you try to gain insight out of them. Well, voice messages, especially now, tend to contain communications from your external constituents rather than internal communications. So we can take that and put it through the same customer journey, customer insight analytics that you perform on other tasks. So we're looking at that. OpenText has a directory services technology called OTDS, which will allow us to integrate tightly into Active Directory. We've done that in a different means before, but this will allow you to make a change in Active Directory for a specific user and have that automatically flow through to CX-E. So you can really manage as much as possible through Active Directory rather than going specifically to CX-E. And the other thing that I'll mention is certainly, the news is technology news is all about cloud. That's certainly no new news, but we've really seen an acceleration in these COVID times of companies really looking at, how much can we cloud enable, and let's move things into a cloud environment. So we've been spending a lot of time supporting container technology. If you've heard of Docker or Kubernetes as a way to manage different Docker images, we're investing a lot in that, so that ultimately what we'll be able to do is deliver to you or make available to you a Docker image of CX-E, which you could then run in your favorite public cloud provider if you wanted to, or maybe you're going to invest in local Docker and Kubernetes environments, and you could run it within your own environment. But it'll make it easier to deliver our product and manage our product in cloud environments. The other related is, as you know, we still have some Windows clients associated with the product that are admin related, and you'll see us move that to web technology. So, trying to move away from any need to install anything on, an end user machine and do it all through web technology. So that gives you just a few things that we're looking at as we move forward on the roadmap. CX-E does have an active roadmap, and we're really pleased and excited about what the new relationship and ownership of OpenText will bring. All right. Just real briefly from a marketing perspective, all of our content on the website is updated. You can still find it under the XMedius website. It'll all move over to OpenText as we get fully integrated into OpenText. But whether it's product overview, features at a glance, if you want to look at all the different 20.4 features, description guides, stuff like that is all available. And we do have, a bunch of presentation material. Videos are available, this presentation, that sort of thing. So again, reach out if there's something you're looking for that you can't find, and I'm sure we've got it somewhere. Okay, with that, final slide, I did mention OpenText World. That's going on this week. It finishes up tomorrow. It is our big user conference. There was a couple of events specific to CXE that are available to you. And there's also, it's across the board. So if there's any other OpenText technology that you're interested in, take a look and you're going to find it, whether it has to do with digital experience, it's going to have to do with voice technologies, security, information management, whatever it may be. There's just a ton of content that's sitting out there and available to you. With that, I'm going to firstly thank you for your attention. We really appreciate you attending. I'm going to hand it back over to Ann, and if you've posted any questions, we'll do our best to answer them for you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. There's questions coming through. So this one, I think you partially answered, but so the question is 20.4 similar to 9.x SU4? So I think, do you want to maybe comment on the SU releases versus the dot releases, or just clarify that?
Sure. So originally, prior to the OpenText acquisition, this release would have been called 9.1, but then we changed it to 20.4. So it would be the equivalent of 9.1. So if you're a current 9 customer on SU whatever, you would have had to upgrade 9 to 9.1, just like you have to upgrade 9 to 20.4. It's the equivalent process. You could still do an in-place upgrade from 9 to 20.4. There's really no difference other than the number that we put on it. But so it's not a software update, which tends to be more of a maintenance release. This is a full feature release that's available. So it requires a new license to entitle you to the 20.4 license or version, and then you're going to upgrade the full stack there.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Next, any ideas if folks will be forced to the cloud in terms of future direction? Our org prefers on-prem.
Yeah, that's
you
kind
touched
of
on that a tiny bit at the beginning.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic in terms of you're starting to see companies do that, where they're saying, okay, no more releases for on-prem. It's all cloud, and you got to move to the cloud. We don't have any, I wouldn't say there's any movement in that regard. I understand it from a software development perspective. If you aren't having to package up releases that you deliver to get installed elsewhere, that removes one task or one variable, I guess. So I get where people would, software manufacturers would like to do that. But we're really focused on, saying, look, every customer is different, and some are going to want this within their own infrastructure. Some of them do it for, compliance and security purposes, where they just don't want it outside of their environment. So we're very much committed to saying, look, the way you want to deploy it is up to you. And we aren't going to force you down one path or the other. So we're going to make the product available for you to host, or your partner hosts it, or we can host it and manage it for you. Or you can have it deployed within your own infrastructure. So yeah, I don't see us doing that. Maybe it changes if we wake up one morning and we go, 95% of our customers are in the cloud now. Why are we continuing to deliver on-prem software? At some point, I guess you reach that. I just don't see that happening anytime soon for us.
Okay, next question. I believe the old mobile client required WPM to be open, not firewalled off. Does the new mobile client permit VPN or some way to keep the server protected?
I'm going to defer on that one. We'll let one of the more technical
We can follow
people.
up with that individual offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll let someone else answer more correctly than I will.
Okay. All right. Next, is transcription an additional license or a subscription included with the web client?
Say that once more. I'm sorry.
Is transcription an additional license?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So transcription.
It's specific to web clients, I think.
Yeah. So transcription is this separate beast. The CX-E solution supports 3 different transcription engines. So you could use Microsoft, you could use Google, or you could use VoiceBase. All 3 of those are services. So if you go off and get you've got a Microsoft account to use their transcription service, you can put those credentials into CX-E, and then as we get those transcriptions, we make them available via web client, we make them available via mobile client, we make them available via unified messaging. There's no special license within our software to say it's either transcription enabled or not. However, there is a cost from Microsoft. There's a cost from Google if you're using those, and there's a cost for VoiceBase. VoiceBase is one we actually resell, so you can buy that through us. Google and Microsoft, you would buy directly from them. So there's a cost for the service. There's not a license or an additional cost to say I want this exposed via this client interface. If you're getting transcriptions, then it's available throughout our product.
Thanks, Tom. And another question relating to transcription. Is it possible to do voicemail to text transcription without sending the WAV file to a third party?
So I think so what that really means is, can I do it behind my firewall? Can I do all the transcription locally? Because all of them, this is all speech recognition technology. They have to have the audio file to transcribe it. So what you're really looking for is not a cloud-based transcription provider, but one that you could deploy locally. Today, the only product that we support is Matari has the ability to deploy it all on-prem and do the transcription. But I will point out the Matari it's doing all that itself and delivering it to your email client or something like that. We are not receiving that transcription back into CX-E where we could make it available via our clients. So it's different, but that can do it locally. We are now, as part of OpenText, I mentioned there are some benefits and opportunities associated with being part of the bigger OpenText organization. They've got a tight relationship with Nuance and have access to their transcription engine, which actually could be deployed on-prem. So we don't support that today directly, but something that we will look at where you could deploy the Nuance transcription engine or NTE. You could deploy that at your facility. We could communicate with it, receive the transcription back, and and make it available via all our clients. So something we will take a look at, but today, if you need to do it, today or tomorrow, then Matari would be the only option that I'm aware of that would allow you to do that.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much, Tom. Well, it looks like we got through all the questions that had been submitted, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. I will, as I mentioned, I will be sending a follow-up email to all of you in the next day or two, so we'll include a link to this recording. All of the resources Tom mentioned, I'll go ahead and include that, as well as a link to the OpenText World registration page. All of those sessions are archived and available. So we'll go ahead and wrap up here. And so just want to say thanks again for everyone for taking the time. Thanks, Tom, for presenting, and have a great day.